Hey, welcome NHL hockey fans. It's that time again, time for another edition of Talkin' Hockey. I'm your host, Charles E. Smith Jr. This is an Inside Sports production. And here it is, it's Thursday, April 19th, and we're going to give you an update on the Eastern Conference first round Stanley Cup playoff action. As you know, I do not work alone here. I do enlist the help of the very, very best. And no matter where I have to go to find them, I will do that because I do this for you, the fans out there, and I want you to have the very best when you listen to me. Download the Podbean app, and remember, Inside Sports, Talking Hockey. You can find us on there. And here he is from somewhere in a bunker in Eastern Canada, believe it or not. I've found these fantastic analysts and one of the best goaltending authorities you can find anywhere, the man with the glove hand from hell, they say, Lightning Lonnie Schwartz. Lonnie, what's happening up there, man?
Pleasure to be with you, sir. We're a week after we started this whole playoff journey. We've seen the unfoldings on the Western Conference side of things. And now we head down the path of the East, where it starts in a deep, dark place called Pennsylvania. And the Philadelphia Flyers, once again, are at the mercy of the Pittsburgh Penguins.
They are, yes. We have Eastern PA versus Western PA, and right now Western PA is beating the devil out of, not the New Jersey Devils, but beating the devil out of Eastern PA. And, you know, I look at this, and this is the Flyers, and we talked about when we analyzed this series. This is the Flyers in a nutshell. Now, look, getting outscored 17-6 in the series, they've lost games 7-0, 5-1, and 5-0. But in the midst of all that, they have one 5-1 victory over the Penguins. Now watch, they'll go out there, they're down 3-1 in the series. I would not be surprised if in the decisive game 5, I'm saying it's going to go 5 and the Penguins are going to close it out. Watch it be a hard-fought battle and it's only 2-1 Pittsburgh or something. You'll put that game together with the 5-1 victory and say, why couldn't the Flyers have played like that the whole series? But they don't do that. That's why they are the Flyers. That's the Flyers in a nutshell. And that's why the only fans that suffer more than Philadelphia Flyers fans are Washington Capitals fans. But the Flyers fans do suffer. They do.
Well,
many years.
I saw this graphic come up after trading away Sergei Bobrovsky. They've gone through nearly a dozen goaltenders, a dozen, including the universal scholar, the man who doesn't understand why you have to be so mad. Why you have to be so mad?
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Ilya Bryzgalov.
Yeah, he played for the Ducks out here. I used to watch him play a lot. Yeah,
I know, but you know, I don't feel you can rest all of this on Brian Elliott. There have been some really good goals. He got called on the one in this past 5-0 game. Phil Kessel, it was a nice pass across. Kessel puts the puck hard on the net. Like, that guy's shot, it's not a clapper, and it's not even always a snapshot. It's just that whip on his wrist shot. You get so much velocity on it, and it comes across, and it looked as though Elliott had it between his glove hand and his pad, and he thought, did it sneak in somewhere? He did one of those little pivots, and then it shook out, and it's you know, what a time for it to do that. And some of those other opportunities where you think that he's square to the shot, and then at the last second, one of his own D-men shoves the opposition in front of him, and I saw the puck. What are you doing? Why did you do that?
Now, here's another reason why we can't put it all on Elliott, and that is because other than the 5-1 victory, the Flyers have scored 1 goal in 3 games.
Yeah, like
that's a tough way to live. I mean, you as a goaltender at your best, did you ever have a goals against average of 0.25 or less over the course of 3 or 4 games? Because that's what you would need to win any of those games.
I'm going to say unequivocally, no. And I mean, like Matt Murray too. Let's also shine on this guy. What has he got? Like 4 shutouts in his last 6 playoff performances or something absurd like that. This is a guy who's another playoff performer. We talked about the playoff performances on the Western side. I mean, Matt Murray's putting himself together as one of those guys that's good in the regular season, and then playoffs, he finds a gear that you don't know exists. And so he's also got the luxury of, I already talked about Phil Kessel, who is one of the greatest personalities in the history of hockey. I call him an Ewok with that facial hair he's got now. I love Phil Kessel. You mentioned
his sister is a pretty fair hockey player too. And when the good thing is, when I look at the two of them, because his sister is a strikingly beautiful blonde, and isn't it good that, you know, either one of them, the body types could have gone either way, you know, and it's a good thing that she doesn't just look like a clean shaven Phil Kessel.
It's like when the GMs were sitting down and they were going, all right, we're going to pass along the good genes. Who's it going to go to? And then the female side made a real hard pull on a first-round draft pick. It was a real gamble, but they really took – no, I'm kidding. I'm playing genetics draft now. That's ridiculous. Yes. It's ridiculous. But what's ridiculous is the Pittsburgh Penguins, Sidney Crosby leading all point getters. He's got the most goals in the – he's proving – he just passed Mario Lemieux, by the way, as the all-time points leader in the playoffs for the Pittsburgh Penguins. Is there any question – and I know we talk with all due respect about Connor McDavid – he's got the Art Ross Trophy again, back-to-back in the regular season. But still, in my opinion, Sidney Crosby is the best player on the planet.
Right. Well, Mike Sullivan said it best, his coach, and he said, he talks about Crosby, he said he plays the full sheet. So it's like this. You can say about McDavid and other players, if you want, Claude Giroux, possibly Andre Kopitar, you can throw him in there, but when it comes to the most complete hockey player in the sport right now, it's Sidney Crosby. There may be guys who are better at certain little things than he is, but the total package player, Sidney Crosby is the best hockey player in the league at this point. That's what it comes down to.
He's doing everything. And then there's some schlub from Russia named Evgeny Malkin, who's just totally slacking off on the point scale. No. Come on, Gino's also lighting it up, and Chris Letang, even though there was a scare in game one, was it? He's come right back in game two. The rest of the series, he's playing like Chris Letang that we've come to know and expect over playoff experience of the past decade. Like this team is just that good, and when people were thinking throughout the season, are they even going to make the playoffs? It's like this team's way too good to miss the playoffs. And now that they're there, it's very real to, again, I hate prognosticating to the full extent, but when we're already talking about back-to-back Stanley Cup champions and they're already manhandling the Philadelphia Flyers, it's going to be tough to underestimate them and their efforts to do a three-peat. And they're getting it from every aspect, and they're getting it from the best player in the world, which is the most important thing. But even then, even if he hiccups, your fallback is a guy whose nickname means goals. Hey, you know, Snoop Dogg just laid out all the lingo for everybody. He mentioned apples, but I'm not sure. I think he said Geno's as well, and not just in respect to Gino Malkin, but putting that puck in the net. This is a special team. So now they get to rest. That's dangerous. That's dangerous.
Unless Philly can do something spectacular like
win
the next couple of games and then before falling on their faces 8-0 in game 7. That would be a Philadelphia ending.
Yeah, sorry, Philly fans. I wrote you off before you were dead and buried, but let's be honest about your chances. Anyhow, there's more to go in the Eastern Conference, is there not?
You know, and let's go ahead and jump over to the team that I think, even though the Boston Bruin fans will be upset about this, but I think the team that poses the imminent threat to Pittsburgh in their three-peat, Tampa Bay Lightning, kind of handling business here, up 3-1 on the New Jersey Devils. I do like the resiliency of the Devils, though, in this series. Like I said in the West about Colorado, you can look forward to Jersey actually being in the hunt now on a regular basis, looking at the makeup of their team. I like where they're going. But right now, Tampa Bay, they kind of remind me, honestly, when I look at the Joe Sakic era Colorado Avalanche, they remind me of that like in, say, 94, 95, where you have all these pieces, all these great players together, but they haven't put it together just yet. And it wasn't until 96 when they finally solidified everything, got that first cup, and then another one in 2001. But I see a lot of similarities with this team because just the raw talent is overwhelming on the Tampa Bay team. But there may be something, just a little element missing for them to go all the way.
Well, and it's the first round. And of course, the general manager is my favorite player of all time. And I speak of him with such reverence that I don't just say it like, I don't just use the layman. It's Stephen Gregory Yzerman. Have to say his full name on his birth certificate to feel I am paying the respect that is due the greatest leader in the history of professional sports, Stephen Gregory Yzerman.
Sounds like how his mama used to call him when he was a child, though, when he was about to get his butt whooped.
Stephen Gregory, why are you outside playing hockey with there's not even a light on anymore? Get inside now. Your meatloaf is cold. But it's Kucherov surprised me in this last game. Kucherov's throwing the body around. We were thinking maybe there's
a surprise Sammy Vatanen too.
Yeah, no kidding. I'm hearing this breeze approaching. Who is this? And then boom, it's Kucherov laying out Sammy Vatanen. And by the way, there's a name that we haven't really mentioned as much as we may have in the past, and that's Steve Stamkos. Not to say that Stamkos isn't doing anything, not to say that he's out to lunch, but Steve Stamkos, he's sitting there with 5 points. He's contributing. If that guy, wakes up and plays like his buddy there, Kucherov.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, what a luxury. Kucherov has got 9. Stamkos, he's only sitting at 5. Ugh, what a waste of ice time.
And we still got Chris Kunitz, and we got Tyler Johnson we haven't talked about, and Point, who's just coming along well. So, yeah, they're set up. That's a juggernaut of a team. And like I said, that collection of talent, just the collection of raw talent, reminds me so much of the Colorado team of the mid-'90s with Joe Sakic, Peter Forsberg, and who else? You had Adam Foote, all those guys, a great defense. Then they got Ray Bourque later on, who was just kind of there to finally get that cup in 2001. But just a lot of points. Milan Hajduk, Alex Tanguay, all those guys. There's a lot of snipers, a lot of talent on that roster.
And there is, like you were pointing out on Tampa, so they're handling a young team that's got a bright future ahead. And what was good to see, too, is Corey Schneider. Now, Corey Schneider might not be on the winning column an awful lot just yet, but, I mean, the fact that he did get a W was something because he hadn't won a game since December 27th. I was like, really? Oh, my God. That's just terrible. And now he pulled out the one win that they needed to get and show that, yeah, there's a future ahead for this hockey team. And they're playing with a bit of an edge. They're not taking the cheap shots. Brian Boyle, former Tampa Bay Lightning player, he's saying, yeah, you're not messing with the young guys on this squad either. And of course, what did was it leukemia that he had come back from earlier in the year? Was it that? I always mix up. I'm terrible. This is going to sound really, really bad, but I'm terrible with the cancers that people have.
You're bad with your debilitating illnesses. I get you, man. It happens.
Walk out.
I know.
Specifics sometimes. It's like,
it falls under the umbrella of health problems. And, it's like it's true. And then we have what Eddie Olczyk went through and a lot of the guys. So it's not trying to be insensitive or anything, but honestly, folks, it does just kind of run together on you. It's like the, leukemia, non-Hodgkin's lymphoma, all the different cancers and things. We're just glad he's okay and back to playing hockey at a high level.
And playing hockey at the level we expect of Brian Boyle. So it's good to see that from that team. I'm glad you pointed that out. You did that really nicely on the Western Conference side of things with respect to the Colorado Avalanche as well. So and by the way, might I say, not to deviate far, that's what I like about a show like yours, Inside Sports. We don't just give the straight up narrative. There are other little elements that we sprinkle in there to give some excitement for you, the good NHL fan that you might not expect. Salt Bay, are you nailing it off the elbow?
Yes, that's it, man. That's what I'm doing. Okay. And, talking about teams with promise, young teams with promise, Boston and Toronto.
Go Leafs.
Toronto Maple Leafs.
Go Leafs, go.
Oh, you picked them. You
Oh
picked
no,
them.
that's
And
on
you know
my
what?
record.
But
Oh
look
no,
at
somebody knows I cheered for the Leafs.
Nazem Kadri, though, getting suspended for going, I don't know, butt to helmet on Tommy Wingles. But then Thomas Plekanec comes in, and really, Plekanec playing between Patrick Marleau and Mitch Marner, and it seemed to offer a little bit of stability there with the leadership that he brought, because we know what a talent Kadri is. He's ridiculously talented. There's no denying that. But something about the calm that Plekanec brings, maybe an element that and then taking an element out, which is the kind of the wildness of Kadri, maybe it brings a calm to that roster of Toronto.
Well, and we'll see what happens when Nas does come back, because he will. You don't bench a 30-goal scorer after a 3-game suspension.
Not unless it's Rob Brown.
Pardon me?
Not unless it's Rob Brown.
Exactly. Yeah.
Or Donald Audette.
Right. Well, yeah.
Okay.
Some classic names from the 80s and
90s. Yes. Some classic guys who couldn't backcheck to save their lives. But that's not Kadri. It's not. But,
no, Nazem Kadri is actually getting sniffs in Selke territory for last year and even moving into this year. His defensive play is very strong, but his mental game has gaps.
Yes.
I would say. I mean, yes, Mitch Marner did get an elbow from Wingles, but at the same time, you can't exactly turn around.
You don't go nuclear about it.
Yeah, you don't go ass to face a la Rikishi in circa WWE Attitude Era. You don't do it. It's just dumb. But either way, like you pointed out, Thomas Plekanec, who Montreal trading away, giving him an opportunity at a Stanley Cup run, divisional rival Toronto Maple Leafs. Yeah, he comes in there. He plays really well with Marner, with Marleau, and it really paid off. And the Leafs also woke up with Austin Matthews. Matthews pulling a real beautiful snipe on Tuukka Rask. It was almost like I had a couple of friends asking me, because, me being in the goalie business, being an instructor and all, they asked me about the snipe from Chara on Freddie Anderson. They're like, wow, what'd you think of that? And I said, he settled into the post too quickly. You're going to hear the term reverse VH or RVH, or the full term reverse vertical horizontal. That's the positioning you see when you see the foot of the goaltender locking in towards the post and going parallel to their goal line. That's where he snuck it between the shoulder and post. And I think that happens very often in terms of going down and locking into that position. And you're seeing a lot of goalies moving away from that and staying upward, covering that by standing. I know, a novel idea circa Pete Peters, 1984. There, you're not the only one who can go 80s in references there, Charles. But
okay.
Austin Matthews pulling the same thing off with Tuukka Rask. So we're talking about elite level shots. It's not like it was a bad goal. It was avoidable goals. But Austin Matthews waking up is a very dangerous thing. But as we also talked about, shutting down that number one line from Boston has been quite the tall task. David Pastrnak becoming the youngest player in NHL history to record 6 points in a playoff game. Whoa, baby. Like that guy's really showing his value as a player that's like maybe one of the more underrated players along with Bergeron in the NHL. It's a real pleasure to see that line perform, because they are just, if Marchand wasn't such a dickhead, and I'm sorry I say that with all due respect to the Rat, if you forgot that dirty part of your game and just excelled at being a dynamic forward, man, like a threat every time, his speed, his net drive, it's just unbelievable to watch. So
I don't know what I would do. I played a lot of hockey. I'm a defenseman. You're a goaltender. That's probably why we vibe so well, because we see the game kind of the same way, and we have to see it and analyze. Otherwise, bad things happen. But I don't know what I'd do. And speaking of Brad Marchand, I don't know what I'd do if in the heat of a moment someone came up to me and licked sweat off my face. I'm not prepared for that. I really am not. I've been cross-checked. I've been taking a spear, a trip into the boards, everything. I've never had an opposing player lick the sweat off my face. In fact, it makes me happy to. I'm glad I wear a cage, just because of that. I guess they could lick some condensation off my visor, but that's about it.
you're referring to what he did to Leo Komarov when
I am. Yes, yes, sir.
They were get a little closer. Don't be shy, Big Red. I mean, like we're talking straight out of a gum commercial from 1987, and he's licking him right along the jawline. He's giving a little sniff, and he's like, Leo, I'm gonna give you a little lick. And Leo, after the game's like, you know, I expect it from him. We have that relationship enough of chirps and beaks going.
He expected that?
Yeah, he was like, I didn't out of the norm. Like I mean, I wasn't exactly expecting a lick, but I'm not surprised I got one.
Right.
But by the way, speaking of surprises, I didn't want to go without talking about Freddie Anderson because, you know, you bring me on as a goalie coach. You just mentioned that I'm a goaltender, and we talked about that snipe that both Matthews and Chara landed respectively. But then there's the save. That stick save that Freddie Anderson made. They were up 4-2. There's a couple minutes left. So, you know, with that gaping cage, and what was it? I think it was on Pasternak. So it wasn't just like some you know, laissez-faire kind of lob at the net. No, we were talking some velocity wrist shot. And he just dove across, stick squat out of the air to keep that momentum in their favor, because there was a lot of pressure. And that's what you were talking about, that on the Western Conference side, the relentless pressure and speed of the Vegas Golden Knights. Boston's a lot like that too, with that relentless forecheck, hard to the net on the Toronto Maple Leafs, just putting all kinds of pressure down low. And it's really something to see Freddie Anderson come back from a game where he got pulled. It was a mercy pull, some real weird goals, and some defensive lapses on the better part of what Jake Gardiner and Nikita Zaitsev. Comes back, makes these out-of-world saves to keep his team in it. And, of course, we're recording this before they play this evening, so we'll see. It's 2-1 in the series right now. But the two of us, we were pretty explicit in saying Toronto's got a real shot at winning this series. I say Toronto for sure. The game ain't over yet. It's only 2-1. The fat lady hasn't even entered the building. She's at home eating the Lay's potato chips. She's going, I'm in Canada. I get ketchup flavored chips if I want.
I've heard about those, man. Can you send her brother a bag?
I can. I would. They're delicious. And you want me to one up on that? Doritos just came out with their limited edition ketchup flavored chip.
All right, I got to have that, man. But, hey, you know what? These two series, though, we're talking about 2-1 Bruins leading. And then the other series, Washington and Columbus, they're also at that critical point, a 2-1 lead for the Blue Jackets. I think something that doesn't get played up enough. Everyone talks about game sevens and things like that, but the fourth game of a series, because either you're getting swept or if you win it, it's a brand new series at 2-2, and it's a best of 3 series after that. But going down 3-1 is the death sentence. So game 4 of the series, even though it's just one game, but the way the mathematics work out in a game 4 is fantastic. It's incredible. I've always loved game 4s, and we'll see Boston leading Toronto 2-1. What is Toronto going to do? But Washington and Columbus. Columbus up 2-1 on the Washington Capitals, and if they can put the Capitals in that stranglehold, that 3-1 stranglehold, I don't think the Capitals have come back from that since they did it to Philadelphia in 1988. Yes, I do remember that, by the way. Ron Hextall in goal for the Flyers, and pretty much that was the start of a nuclear winter for Ron Hextall. We didn't see him resurface. He was done for 10 years after that, until he played in this Cup final in 1997 before he went belly up again.
Well, the one thing I want to say about this series, and with respect to what you said about game 4, is it's that momentum shift. Like you said, if it's a big sweep, great, you get some rest. You tie it up. The team that ties it up can carry that momentum going forward, and it could be a real motivator. And then you can even go so far, like you said, 3, that's like, man, that either really tests the mental fortitude of the team that goes down, or it's pretty much, all right, we can put this thing away. It is the pivotal game, absolutely. And Washington had the first 2 games in hand. They did. And then they blew it offensively. They let Artemi Panarin. Why Why did you trade Artemi Panarin, who is, well,
the same thing with Teravainen. They were up against the cap.
Oh,
they couldn't keep Panarin. They could not keep Teuvo Teravainen either.
Oh, just such an error to make that decision to trade away this talent, because he's the guy who's just putting it on at the right time, scoring the pivotal goal that the Blue Jackets need to either tie up or go ahead. Like, he's playing clutch hockey here. And Washington, on the other hand, as I'm watching these guys play, and I don't heap anything on Ovechkin. That guy's playing hockey. He's playing what he needs to play. It's the guys surrounding him. And one player, and I'm going to get to him, and it's going to sound like I'm going all Donald S. Cherry on him, but if there's a more frustrating player to watch than Evgeny Kuznetsov, I'd like to know who it is, because he's a very talented hockey player. But I was seeing plays on the power play where Ovechkin is in his office, and it's not like anybody on the ice doesn't know where he is. Everyone knows where he is. And there's Kuznetsov with a clear path to the office where the final sale is going to get booked on the power play. He was behind the goal line. And what does he try and do to one of the best goalies in the world, if not the best goalie in the world? He tries to sneak it in between the goalpost and a locked up skate. Sergei Bobrovsky is not letting that goal in, Yevgeny. You make that pass through the seam to Ovechkin and you bury these guys on the power play. But instead, it gets killed and the momentum shifts the other way, because guess who got the goal right after that? Columbus. Like,
yes.
Think. Kuznetsov doesn't know how to do that. He doesn't put it together. Buddy, the apple counts just as much as the Gino. You're still going to get the point, you idiot. Pass the puck. Be aware of what's going on around you. For Christ's sakes, Jesus is coming down and painting out from the Bible itself. This is what you do. Do it. I command you to pass to Ovechkin from here, you simpleton. Do it. I'm mad because I just see it, and it's like, what are you doing? Poor offensive choices on the power play is what's killing the Washington Capitals, on top of stupid penalties that Wilson is incapable of not doing.
Yep, I get you. And that's been my frustration with the Capitals. And like I said, and that's why, that we picked the Jackets to win the series, pull the upset, but something needs to, and as I said before the series, who knows, maybe Washington will turn things around and it'll prove that, all of this was for naught. But I think it's time, like I said, they need to trade Ovechkin just to get some good pieces in there, and it's not Ovechkin's fault. Either that or get rid of the whole Kuznetsov and Backstrom element from the team and get other guys for them. But something needs to change about the dynamic, because they keep running into this same thing year after year, season after season, playoff series after playoff series. You have this great regular season, sometimes winning the President's Trophy, get to the playoffs, and it seems like shutting them down is about the easiest thing that the other team does. It's a matter of how tough are you to play against in the playoffs. Regular season, you got these guys skating around, and maybe you're thinking, all right, you know what, it's these guys tonight, but tomorrow we play Carolina, and then after that, so you're not that motivated. But a best of seven, when it's just locked down, this team, our guys against theirs, how tough are the Capitals to play against?
And the answer is pretty plain to see, not that tough. And I've got to take a bit of a misconduct here, because I didn't give Braden Holtby enough credit on our last recording. He might have had an off playoff last year, but in looking a little further down, he was far from the problems in previous playoff losses. He had some pretty outstanding numbers. It's just that his team wasn't able to put up the points. And it just goes towards what we said in the Western Conference and what we saw with Jonathan Quick. The guy had a .947 save percentage and a goals against that was well under 2, and his team just didn't pull out the win. Great goaltending only gets you so far. You still need to score the goals. And as a whole, Washington's not doing that. And when you say trade Ovechkin, I used to be able to say with confidence, oh no, never. But now I'm sort of on that level. But when you say maybe change the, the surrounding cast, like you could probably still get a first round pick for Kuznetsov. You could still probably get a considering what went down at this trade deadline, you could certainly get a first round pick for him. You could certainly get a first round pick still for Nicholas Backstrom. You can start revamping this team and getting some good draft picks or even some young players
before they waste the career of Ovechkin in one way or another. Either you need to trade Ovechkin or trade those guys that you depend on and have been depending on, who have been letting you down for the past 4 or 5 years now. Get rid of them. But something needs to change in Washington.
Absolutely. And look, the series is 2-1. Fortune might change. Barry Trotz might get the troops all settled down and say we can't just rely on Lars Eller all the time to score game-winning goals in overtime, which Lars Eller, like it went off the defenseman's foot. I'm watching that. I'm going, Lars Eller's going to win this game. And I hate Lars Eller. I'm sorry. He's a nice guy. I interviewed him, but he's like, when the whole trade with him and Halak and then going to Washington for he's useless. I don't like him as a hockey player. Anyway, he scores the game-winning goal. The way he was going to shoot that puck, it looked like it was going to hit Bobrovsky. But unfortunately for Bobrovsky, it hit his own defenseman because it really looked like Eller was like, I've got a wide open net, but I see a great big blue jersey I'm going to pump this puck into. Never mind the gaping net. I don't trust that guy's offense like I don't trust a rat with a secret. Well,
it's one of those things, and some guys just happen to be born under that lucky star, shall we say, and these moments kind of find them. So you have Lars Eller playing, it just reminds me, remember Jeff Friesen, remember Peter Klima just being completely unworthy of these huge goals that they scored. And I think Ovechkin, if I'm not mistaken, has never scored an overtime game winner in the playoffs.
No, he is not. That was alarming that he hasn't put his team over the top. But we've still got a series, like I said. Both our heads are saying Columbus, even though our heart aches for the great 8 Alexander Ovechkin.
And the fans. Yeah. I know Caps fans, and oh my God, they suffer.
And imagine this. Let me just put this out there, okay? You've got the Washington Capitals who've had some dubious seasons, right? They've got some on the L column of history. They've got some teams they've put up there ranking in the top 5 all-time losses. Imagine this: expansion Vegas Golden Knights, Stanley Cup champions year 1. Washington looking on, going, God.
Right.
We're going to
Mother FCC.
We're going to the arena and we're just going to implode this mother. I would just, if I was them and I saw that, I'd be like, I'm burning everything. No, we're moving this team to Quebec because it ain't happening anymore here. We're done. But Ted, the whole community will, Ted, we're moving the team to Quebec. Okay, because we're never going to win in Washington. So we may as well go where there's some maple syrup or some shit like that, because this isn't flying.
Yep, I agree. But we'll see. And just to recap, remember Pittsburgh up 3-1 on Philly, Tampa Bay up 3-1 on New Jersey, Boston, and the Columbus Blue Jackets. And that's 2 good games tonight. Both those series are in action tonight. So those game 4s, Boston and Toronto, Boston trying to put the stranglehold on Toronto, and the Columbus Blue Jackets trying to put the stranglehold on the Washington Capitals. They're up 2-1. That game 4 will be happening tonight, and that is this is Thursday, April the 19th, as we are doing this show, and we're going to be with you once a week throughout the playoffs, just to give you an update and preview the round by round and, share some wisdom with you. It's not about you agreeing. Hopefully we raise the hockey IQs out there. And if you don't agree wholeheartedly, hey, you know what? Just to create understanding and get you to think about the game and forget about the hype that you see, forget about all that stuff, and just really look at and analyze. If you can listen to us, and the next time you watch a game, you're able to see it differently. That's really the goal, is just to be able to watch a game and recognize the nuances of the great sport of hockey. That's what we're here for.
And we try our best from the perspective of a defenseman and a goaltender. As you mentioned earlier in the show, you're not going to find too many other positions in any given sport that can see the entire story and kind of break it down bit by bit, piece by piece. You might sit there and go, you'll be like, this is the fun part where they're gonna be sitting in the bar and their friends go, oh, that goal was weak. What are you talking about? And you're gonna be like, actually, I was listening to Inside Sports. We were talking hockey, and they said that kind of a goal, maybe a little harder than you think. And they're going to be like, well, what do you know? Well, clearly more than you do. And then that's the mic drop, and you walk away, and you keep watching the hockey game, and you see how the greatest quest in the history of professional sports continues on. I'm always happy to join you, by the way. And like I did on the West Coast side of things, I'm going to give you the props. Charles E. Smith Jr. at the Inside Sports on Twitter. If you disagree with us, or if you learned something new, you had this startling revelation, you go to at the Inside Sports and say, thank you, Charles E. Smith Jr., for the knowledge that you dropped free of charge so I could understand this great game of hockey. And maybe not so many thank yous for bringing on that raving lunatic from Eastern Canada.
Hey, there you go. And you know what? Even if you disagree, that's fine. Just tell me why. What goes for social media is when you disagree, you just go on a profanity-laced tirade, which actually means nothing. If I'm wrong, if you think I'm horrible or don't, just tell me exactly why. That's all. And maybe I learned something from you guys because, hey, there's hockey players out there, and maybe there's things I haven't considered. I welcome any and all discussions as long as you just keep it civil. Not that my feelings are that easily bruised, but I'm just saying you want to get somewhere and reach a level of understanding. It's not just about me throwing out profanity and you throwing out profanity and then acting like we both won because, So, hey, that's what it's about. Communication. Communicate, folks.
We're sports fans. Since when do we have feelings?
Yeah. Okay, and like we talk about, no conspiracy theories. I don't want to hear about it with the penalties being called. The refs took the game. No, unless you can look at the game. And so what gets to be crazy is people talk about the refs taking the game, and it's like, well, what about your star forward missing a wide open net in the middle of period 2 in that game that you lost 2-1? What about your other guy who lost the puck in the middle of a breakaway in the 3rd period in that 2-1 game? No, you want to go back to a missed tripping call in the 1st period of the game and say the refs had conspired and took the game from you.
Yeah, and by the way, just so that there's more context and make you sound like the smartest guy in the room when you want to talk executive conspiracy theory level stuff, don't just throw out the name that we all know, Gary Bettman. Okay, don't just throw that one out. Here's the one you really want. This is the most powerful man in hockey. The chief Illuminati of hockey is Jeremy Jacobs, the man who runs the Bruins. He's the head of the board of governors. He's the guy who runs the whole show. So if you want to talk conspiracy and you really want to go deep down that wormhole, don't say Bettman. He's the patsy, right? He's the Lee Harvey Oswald that they trot out to the library and say, yeah, he's the guy who did it. I saw him. That's Jacobs pointing. He's going, I saw him do it. It was all him.
So that's why Kadri got 3 games.
Okay.
There we go. Something to think about.
No, God, no. We're not going there.
Okay.
We're not going there. God, now look what I've done. Look what I've gone and done.
Yeah.
I'm going to go chug some maple syrup and correct myself before I wreck myself.
Okay, everybody. Remember, you can follow Lonnie on Twitter at the Schwartz 5454. That's at the Schwartz SCHWARTZ 5454. And before we get on out of here, Mr. Schwartz, what have you got for us? Any words of wisdom for the hockey-loving public? Should I say more words of wisdom? I'll give you the floor here before we go.
Being the goaltender that I am, it's just recognizing that while we do strive for perfection, it is an impossible conquest, unless of course your name happens to be like Marc-Andre Fleury or Matt Murray right now. No, I'm kidding around. A lot of it rests on the pressure of the goaltender to make big differences, and a lot of the goalies that are still in this are making those differences for their teams right now. And there hasn't been one real weak link. Even if you want to try and point the finger at Brian Elliott, I think that his team's really doing a disservice in front of him on a lot of those goals. And especially when you hear ping posting in or bar down, that's about as good a beat as you're going to get. So when you see some guys that are getting pulled, a lot of the time it's out of sheer mercy from the coach saying, hey, you know what? We're not going to pin this all on Brian. We're going to take him out. We're going to give him that rest that he's owed and the respect that he's earned as a starting goaltender. Although there are some goals that you look at and go, ooh, I should have taken the other girl home from the bar, because that one was definitely the beer goggles talking. So,
and then there's Sidney Crosby with the game one, the backhanded baseball swing on a puck that's in midair.
Yeah, we're not even
knocking it to the far post. We won't get into that though. No, that's the Matrix.
It's just grossly unfair. And as Donald S. Cherry said, and if you are listening from north of the border where I reside, and Don Cherry was mentioning this specifically about the Philly series after that 7-0 drubbing, don't poke the bear. You know, they might be named Penguins formally. They are the bear. They are the dominant team. They are the reigning Stanley Cup champions, and they're showing why. This is not an anomaly performance. I talk specifically about goaltenders. I'm going to talk about this series very briefly again because we kicked it off. This is not the anomaly. This is the playoff Pittsburgh Penguins. So to knock them off as two-time defending Stanley Cup champions with the absolute best player on the planet, playing the best playoff hockey you could fathom in Sidney Crosby, with a supporting cast that includes other guys that can equally make the Conn Smythe argument in Kessel and Malkin. This is the bear. This is the bar that is set. So they are the team to beat. And they are just showing it. They are demolishing the Philadelphia Flyers right now. So Tampa, anybody who's going to have to face them, Toronto, Columbus, good luck, anyone.
Put on your work boots. That's all you can say.
That's the last thing I'm going to say about that team. It's just amazing to watch that team perform, and don't count them out. Don't think they're overrated. They're the defending champs for a reason. I'm going to leave that cliche at that.
Boom. I love it. So, all right, everybody, enjoy the games tonight. This is, like I said, Thursday, April 19th. Boston and Toronto tonight. Also, Washington and Columbus. And we'll be back next time. We'll be previewing the second round of the Stanley Cup playoffs. For Mr. Lonnie Schwartz, I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. Thank you for watching Talking Hockey, and we will see everybody next week.